started. We're missing a couple of people, but because of the rain and for respect out of everyone's time, we just want to get started with this press conference. I'm joined today by Dr. Munoz, Terry from Direct Action for Rights and Equality, as well as Camilo Viveros from the George Wiley Center. And we know what is happening across the state to protect Rhode Islanders from facing eviction. We know that COVID-19 has worsened the housing crisis in our state, and that both landlords and tenants are facing really difficult financial choices. The financial help to pay for rent and mortgage is there, but too many people are finding it to be inaccessible. I want to first off acknowledge the hard work that Rhode Island Housing has been doing to ensure that people who are getting the economic relief that they need through the Rent Relief Program, Rent Relief RI Program. I know it hasn't been easy, given everything that we have been facing, but regardless of the effort, we need to acknowledge that those who are most in need, our BIPOC communities, are not being reached and are being left behind. Community organizations like the George Wiley Center, like THERE, like Center for Justice, RILS, and others have really been filling the gap of doing this work and are making sure that our communities are served. But it comes at a cost to them. And we need to ensure that those organizations, particularly those that have not received funding, are able to do this work and reach our communities when they need it the most. Not just when they're going through the court process eviction. Today we got a special announcement of what we want to do. We want to do a model, an eviction moratorium clinic, where we focus on reaching out directly to our BIPOC communities through access services. This clinic will be modeled after an equity-focused BIPOC vaccination clinic that you all may remember was done, and this will help individuals and their families not only to get information about rent relief, but apply directly with people who have the same language, who may have the same cultural background, and will be really able to connect with them and make them understand what documents that they need. We know that there is barriers when it comes, again, to languages. We know that there's digital divide, and we hope that in putting this clinic together, we can really bridge those divides and get for communities, members the help that they need. So we want to call on the governor, we want to call on Rhode Island Housing to really put the resources and funding behind this modeled effort that we know that works, to reach communities of color that need this eviction protection the most and that needs these reliefs the most, both landlords and tenants. And with that, I want to present Dr. Munoz.
Policy to take out the mask when you speak, is that?
I think so.
I just want to make sure I'm following the rules. Cool. Thank you all for coming. My name is Luis Daniel Munoz. Here today, I just want to thank Representative Felix. We really first connected during the BIPOC mass vaccination weekends, which the administration called the equity-driven vaccination weekends. But clearly, in this crisis, we've seen that there are significant inequities in this country, and those inequities can be addressed. Disparities, I would say, lessened if we have programmatic solutions and programs that actually get the money where the money needs to go. The lessons we learned in the BIPOC mass vaccination weekends, essentially vaccination weekends for Black, Indigenous, Asian, Latino communities that have been racialized in this country, is that community-driven solutions are the right way to go. But as Representative Felix mentioned, people need to get paid. It's unfair that communities continue to get exploited, that they continue to serve as those that triage the community need to the few organizations that have the privilege and the connections to receive the dollars. You know, this is personal for me. I grew up in Central Falls, and as a child, I experienced not only poverty, but homelessness. You know, I experienced what it was like to see boxes out on the street, what it was like to feel at the age of 12 like you were burdening the few family members that wanted to help you but could barely afford to survive themselves. You know, at some point, diplomacy ends when human rights continue to get pushed to the back of the bus. At some point, diplomacy ends. The administration has recently said that they're willing to bend the rules. But on the Equity Council, we've been hearing from Rhode Island Housing and the administration that they've been willing to do that for 6 weeks now. We're 4 months into a program with $350 million available and with only a little over $18 million dispersed. Out of that $18 million that's been dispersed, $6 million has been denied. And we have $30 million worth of need coming down the pipeline that still hasn't been addressed. You know, these are just data points, but I made phone calls to the participating organizations yesterday that are doing the work, that are the grantees. And those organizations aren't at capacity. One person for 3 towns can only complete 12 applications, new applications a week. Is that the capacity that's going to address the $30 million need, which is really just the need that's been applied for, not the need that has not been accounted for? Malcolm X once said, "The truth does not change, our awareness of it does." What we're doing today is trying to share with all of you that there are problems in the system. The problems are thusly: 1, that outbound calls, the call center that deals with these applications has had problems. One of the problems is people will receive calls. The outbound or call center will essentially say they don't have documentation, even though the documentation is uploaded. A delay in that documentation can mean a month, 2 months. That's 3 months into an eviction letter. Is that progress? Is that a program that's functioning well? Additionally, you know, we talk about the application process, and we aren't addressing language needs the way we should be addressing them. Technology access. Marginalized communities, which inevitably cover every racialized community, people that are more elderly, that don't have access to emails, are finding themselves in situations where Rhode Island Housing's denial process is hitting them. If they don't respond in 5 days to an email, they get automatically denied. If it took someone 2 weeks to get to the point where they could submit it, how long will it take for them to reapply? These aren't just questions. The proposal today is to work with community organizations like Direct Action for Rights and Equality, like the George Wiley Center, like other organizations that aren't here today that consistently do mutual aid work, and to get the money to those organizations, to have an equity-driven clinic, which specifically, let's acknowledge, is really to serve the most disenfranchised communities, which are Black, Indigenous, Asian, Latino, and yes, our white neighbors that find themselves poor as well. Those that don't act now are going to be held accountable tomorrow. I want everyone to know that. I will hold them, the people on the other side of these cameras will hold them accountable. Thank you, Representative, for standing up.
Hi, I'm from the George Wiley Center. We're a 40-year-old grassroots organization that's statewide. And I want to really emphasize that this is a statewide crisis that we're facing. We've worked with tenants in Cranston, in Warwick, all over the state that have been facing a crisis before this eviction moratorium is scheduled to expire. So fortunately, we have great leadership that's here today that pulled some of us together, and we started strategizing this moratorium eviction clinic. And amidst that, we were very happy to read on Saturday that Rhode Island Housing is working with the governor's office to streamline the application process. So, you know, it's great to read that in the paper. We're looking forward to when those changes actually come into place, because we have to be clear. You know, people have used this metaphor of the COVID crisis being like a war. And there are some of us that have been on the front lines this whole time, and it's not hyperbole to say that this is life or death, right? Some people like to believe this crisis is over. We see Delta variant increasing, and as we've heard, we're not all at the same level of vulnerability. A lot of our members at the George Wiley Center got involved because they're disabled, they're low income, people of color, also English might not be the first language. So we're doing the best we can, right? One-on-one with our members, with the public that comes in, And it's taken sometimes 4 to 5 hours to submit an application for rent relief. And we can do better, right? If this is a war on this pandemic, multiple crises of public health, racial injustice, and economic crisis, then we need reinforcements, right? And we need to support those of us on the front lines who are seeing this crisis, because maybe not everyone's seeing it quite the same way. That sense of urgency we need to be addressed right now, right? This level of crisis, we've been in it for over a year, and we know this is deadly, and it has life or death consequences, and we can do better, right? We can do better with the leadership like we have right here. We can do better by listening to community-based organizations, right? To make sure that we're not just throwing things online and expecting everyone to have access. The digital divide is real for low-income people in Rhode Island, for people who don't have access, right? And it makes a difference between having housing or not. So we need to expand on our ability to meet people face-to-face in a safe way, right? To make sure they have access to these applications, and that these applications are streamlined to prevent any barriers that may be there, and there are many barriers. And right now, after a year of struggle, it's time to make sure we address every one of them, right? It's a public health crisis that is not class or race blind. This is affecting communities of color disproportionately, and we know that because of levels of unemployment, we have to address the economic crisis. So we need more boots on the ground, and we also need the resources so we can actually fight this epidemic on multiple levels every way we can, right? This is about our neighbors and friends. This is about our families. So we're looking forward to working with Rhode Island Housing, the governor, our legislative officials, to make sure that we're as effective as possible, right? We heard about the term triage. This is a triage moment. You know, everyone needs to be involved. Everyone needs to be on the same page. And that's the point of this press conference, is really to sound the alarm, to shine a light on organizations that are out there on the front lines that can share lessons, right? And give feedback to make sure that the funds that are coming from the federal government that we've all paid, let's be clear, right? This is our tax money that's coming to us, and we should have a voice in how that money is distributed and make sure that folks on the front lines get the support to do the best job possible.
Hello, my name is Terry Wright, and I'm the organizer of there's Tenant Homeowners Association. And I just want to start by saying 2 words: housing justice. This is why we are here. Where is Rhode Island's housing justice? We are in a pandemic with an overlapping housing crisis, and 40,000 families are at risk of imminent eviction, a known barrier to obtaining housing in the future. Rent Relief Rhode Island should be accessible as possible for applicants, our tenants, our landlords. And time to not only ensure but pay landlords and property owners and relieve tenants and their families from worry and fear of being homeless without a moratorium, protecting our renters during a nationwide time of need. Both tenants and landlords need help with the application process. In the current hiring of 3 to 4 places, it's just not enough for Rhode Island. Dare applied to be one of those places and was turned down. Dare has been doing housing work. Dare's going on 35 years come October, and this housing crisis is still here. Dare applied to help with Rent Relief Rhode Island and was turned down, and I've been doing the work. We've been doing the work at Dare, even though we're not getting paid, as a service to our community, like we've always done and will always do. Excuse me. We need more community-based organizations helping in order to thrive and attempt the Green New Deal that our Governor Dan McKee is in favor of and supports. We need more affordable housing and not evictions. The time is now to keep families housed and their utilities on. Let's remain excited about all the federal relief money here in our state, and let's continue to do the work to make sure that Rhode Island is protected. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who spoke and really rang the alarm, on this important issue. With that being said, this eviction moratorium clinic will begin in Pawtucket. We have two tentative dates that we have selected, and that is on September 30th and October 2nd. We will be putting out information as to when the times and locations for these clinics will be. We're working really hard to connect with as many organizations out there as possible who really want to work with us to make sure that everyone is served. This is about serving our residents. This is about serving our community. And for me in particular, this is about serving Pawtucket. I have received a lot of calls from constituents who are really desperate, whether they're tenants or landlords that really need the help. And particularly those that are non-English speakers who can't access the application or don't know how to access it because they don't know how to work a computer. So this is really what motivated me and others to really come together to put this clinic in place to help the work that's already being done and not to hinder it. We're not trying to be a station block to anyone. We're just trying to let everyone know we are here to help. And I really hope that everyone will consider spending some time, spending some resources, and helping us put this together. And with that being said, I'll open it up to any questions.
Representative, Pat Ford, Coalition Radio Network. If I can go briefly over a timeline. Last Thursday, the Supreme Court issued, if you will, for lack of a better term, a decision invalidating the CDC's attempt to extend the moratorium. Legal experts had been predicting this literally for months. Everyone knew that on a statutory level, the CDC did not have the authority to do this. That next morning, the district court here in Rhode Island revised its procedures so that effectively already declared evictions could be served at any time. The coalition has been attempting to reach Rhode Island housing since last week to get either direction for ourselves, our viewership, or the community at large, and have yet to receive a single return phone call. Yesterday at the governor's press conference, he said they would have people in housing court. That sounds great, but those folks have no statutory or legal authority to stop an eviction process. Has Rhode Island Housing completely abandoned their sense of responsibility to the community in the state of Rhode Island? And is it time for a change of leadership at the top, as we've been going at this for months right now, and it's a bureaucracy that seems to be hopelessly out of control?
I can't speak to saying in terms of about what's happening with Rhode Island Housing, right? Mm-hmm. Because we are here to provide support, not to badmouth or speak ill of what the work that they are doing. They are doing really good work in terms of reaching those folks that are going through eviction in the court process. And that's according to organizations like the Center for Justice and RILS, who work Rhode Island Legal Services, who are in conjunction with them, right? So we don't want to go out there and say, no, they're doing a horrible job, because we know that a lot of applications have been processed and money is going out the door to those who need it. What I do want to say is that it's important to be communicating communicated to the community, right? If you have reached out and they haven't reached out back to you, I really want to urge Rhode Island Housing to really get back to your constituents, to get back to the people who are reaching out. I know that they're flooded, excuse me. I know that capacity is an issue, but I think it is important to get those answers, and I'm happy to work with you to be able to communicate with them and try to see if we can get answers to the questions that you have and see how we can move things along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should the state be required to offer lawyers to everybody who's being evicted? Right now, there's no law that says a person being evicted is entitled to a lawyer. I'm sorry. Should the state be required to give a lawyer to anyone who's being evicted, like we do for defenders' defense? Right now, there's no law to do that. Is that something that we should be looking at?
I wish we could provide lawyers for many, many issues, including evictions, right? There's people going through child custody. One of the most painful things that could ever happen to a human being is losing their child, yet there's no constitutional right to an attorney for that either. I really do believe, and I really would hope that a program could be put together where every single person who is going through an eviction would be able to get an attorney, because we know that that makes a difference. We know that when someone is represented by an attorney, things can be delayed, agreements can be reached where otherwise can't. So I think that I would love to see that happen. I don't know if there's other states that have done it, but I'm happy if you do know, send me some resources. Maybe we can make that happen.
Maybe pass a law.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
Has Rhode Island Housing committed to any sort of turnaround time, if you will, to the orderly processing of these applications, knowing that, again, as you just pointed out, you're asking civilians, if you will, to work out a legal document where there are untold number of issues. But much like the problems we had with the registry in past years of motor vehicles, there doesn't appear to be any. What can you do to force them to meet some reasonable expectation, given now that evictions, again, are imminent?
Yes. We just had a meeting with legislators, with Rhode Island Housing in terms of processing times and kind of getting an idea of what has been happening with them. They are flooded with applications. I know that they're working as hard as they can. What we can do is continue to put pressure and continue to ask these questions and hold them accountable for the work that they're doing. And that's what I intend to do. That's what we all intend to do in terms of making sure that, especially now with this moratorium ending and the process that people are going through, that we hold them accountable to do the work. Again, I am empathetic, really empathetic to the work that they're doing, because it's not easy work. And I don't want to minimize the work that they have been doing and the money that has been going out to community members everywhere. But I do want to emphasize that there are gaps. And it's okay for us to acknowledge when there are gaps and for us to step up and say, we're willing to help you, so help us. I've had conversations with them. They are willing to help with these clinics in providing training or resources. So I know that they want to help. It's just a matter of, again, holding them accountable and ensuring that they are doing the work that they set out to do. It is a big task, but again, they don't have to go at this alone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.